So I don't think it's a hot take by any means to say that expression is one of, if not the single most important aspect of art. I think this is such a fun conversation about how expression works in art because it's almost something that we all have like a PhD in. Like we're all experts on this in one way or another. Because we can all feel the emotions in art, right? Sometimes you feel more, sometimes you feel less, but your interpretation is undeniable, right? It's something that works almost purely on like a functional basis. Did you feel the painting? Did you feel the emotions evoked in the painting? No? Guess it didn't evoke them well for you, right? And then you can even go on and say that consensus, and this is a fairly reductive explanation, I guess, there's disagreements to be had here, but we could say, for the sake of argument for this video, that consensus comes from a bunch of people walking up to a painting and going, wow, this makes me feel X emotion. And then everybody's like, this is a good painting because I feel this emotion. I think a great example of this is like Wander Over the Sea Fog. It's like, oh, this is a painting that everybody who sees it feels victorious or you know, like triumphant, sublime, whatever word you want to use there, right? I think this is so cool. I think this is awesome. I think actually, I'll go as far as saying this is what makes art art, right? Speaking about the arts in a more colloquial sense, I feel the need to make that clarification because oftentimes on the show we'll talk about art in the super broad sense of like, you know, everything is art, iPhones are art, like everything can be considered art, but talking about art in terms of like what we consume, the mediums of art, painting, song, literature, these things, right? You can really feel them, and I think it's really cool. I think also something interesting is that the way that mediums get their reputation oftentimes has to do with the ability to evoke an emotion, right? I think this is why like video games, despite being a fairly revolutionary medium of art, haven't gotten the reputation of being the most insane thing ever, because I think it's hard to get many people to feel the emotions in the game, right? Like, let's say that there's a great game with a great story, as there are many, and at the end of that story you feel like so sad, maybe a character dies, something crazy, right? Maybe it makes you feel existential, some great emotion it makes you feel. The unfortunate part there is that since you can't consume it as directly, not as many people are going to feel that, and it's never going to get that reputation, right? I think there's an argument to be made there. I don't really know if I think that's 100% how this works, but I think you could say that, that certain mediums get their reputation based off the emotions that they allow viewers to evoke. But I want to kind of explore the inverse of that for this episode. I want to think about the fact that certain mediums are more inclined for expression than others, right? The ultimate example of this is obviously music, right? Like music is the, I don't want to say the most pure form of expression, but almost the most direct. Like if you could inject art into your veins, it would come in the form of music and it goes into the ears, not the veins, right? Because sounds can very directly make us feel emotions. Isn't that weird, by the way? Like, isn't it weird that right next to making cave paintings, the first thing we did was like bang a bunch of rocks together and start moving around to it? Like I feel like this is such a weird side tangent, so strange to go down this road, but I've always thought that, like, you know, some things make sense. Like, oh, you're attracted to this person because you need to continue the species, or you get hungry, you need to eat to survive, or like, you need to breathe air to get oxygen. Like, these things make sense. And like, let's for a second sit in this chair of God. Like, you're God making humans, right? You're like, I'll give them like all these things, this will work, right? They'll have 2 legs, they'll walk around with them, and then they'll make these things bang together and they'll all start moving. Like, that's weird. Like, that's like it's kind of a curveball. Like, I don't know where that comes from. I wonder, somebody maybe like an anthropologist or something, might have I don't know what anthropology is. I should actually completely clarify that. I just threw out the word because I think like, I feel like I trust an anthropologist to answer here. Maybe somebody like an anthropologist can tell me like why we all do that. Or a psychologist. I don't know, guys. I don't know how I feel about psychologists these days. Sometimes I'm like, you guys don't move me the way that you did. Like, I know that like Carl Jung or whatever isn't like a very accurate psychologist. Like, I know like they say like Freud and Jung kind of aren't like how it works or whatever. But you know what's way cooler than like being able to prescribe and actually fix all these things? Freud being like, you have an aversion to the color red. It's because you saw red as a kid. Like, that's so much better. So Carl Jung too. I mean, that guy was just like, wow. Like, I don't know where he thought of that stuff. But point aside, music is something that can make you feel emotions in ways that are like insane, right? I mean, there's even proven things of this. There's certain melodies that make people feel positive or happy, and there's certain melodies that make people feel sad, right? Like, music is a way to express emotion and very easily translate it. But I think what's so interesting when it comes to medium, and what I'm going to be making here today are fairly obvious observations, but they're just something that I think makes art so cool. What music's terrible at doing is if you want to tell a really lengthy story about how the world works and how, devastating things happen. Now, of course, I should caveat this with it's not by any means impossible, right? There are albums that are large concept albums that cover huge breadths of topics. A recent one that I don't know if you can exactly call it a concept album, but definitely was very cohesive in its messaging and themes, was Version by Lord. That's an album that's like, I'm still listening to it, I'm still digesting it, to be honest, but like, wow, like it's getting across so many emotions, so many complex things that I have never heard in song before, right? To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar is like the quintessential annoying guy example of this, of like that can cover so many complicated, insane things. Personally, and people are going to crucify me for this, I think Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is his best album, but that's besides the point. You can tell long, breathy stories about complicated things in music, but if you want to tell a story more directly, like not tell a story in concept, in theme, or have people feel a story and they have to piece it together, but directly describe a room and describe the way things felt and how that feeling translates into something else, the best way to do that is through literature, right? Some could argue that movies are better because you can directly show it. However, I think that what's so great about literature is the fact that there's still enough room for interpretation left that it can always be more moving. Like, a while ago on the show, we talked about sketches, right? And how sketches have the power to be so moving because our mind completes a sketch. If I do a sketch of a head and it's not really clear of like, does the face on this head look sad or happy? You, in your mind, will fill in the blanks and put onto that face something that you feel, right? I don't know if it's sound to say that if you're feeling sad, the face will look sad. I don't think that's how that works. Once again, Freud probably has a great answer to that. That's wildly inaccurate, but sounds awesome. But the point is, sketches are great for that reason. And what comes from the sketches is a little bit of abstraction, a little bit of blank stuff that's always going to allow your mind to fill in stuff. And that's what literature does so well, right? I can describe every single aspect of a room, but if I leave one thing blank, if I don't tell you the tone of the lighting in this room, you'll fill in the tone of the lighting when you are imagining in your head as you're reading that book. And that'll inform so much. No two people have ever read the same book. Like, have you ever thought of the same novel? I guess, if it's a nonfiction book, it's a little different. But no two people have ever read the exact same novel because everybody has to imagine a little bit differently in their head. That's where I feel like that movies take away so much power, right? And that's why I say that novels are the best at telling you how the world works, because that little bit of abstraction, that little bit of filling in the blanks that you're forced to do when you read a novel, in the process of you imagining things, that little bit of stuff that you're forced to fill in, I think is so powerful because, yes, a movie could show you how the world works better than anything else maybe. I think that's one of the strengths of movies, of that medium, is it can tell you what's going on. I can go take a camera and go over to Queens right now and film Queens, and you will have a direct idea of, okay, in July, what is going on in Queens? It's July, I can directly see in front of me what is happening in Queens, right? Of course, things will go on, and then it'll become a historical timepiece. Okay, I can go and see what's happening in Queens in July of 2025. Right? So that's pretty cool, and that's awesome from movies. And yeah, so maybe movies are the best at telling you what's going on in the world. But there's never going to be something as good as a novel, in my opinion, as telling you what's going on in your world, like in your head. Because I think that little bit of abstraction, that little bit of filling in the blanks, you're always going to see your own world. Because, like, once again, I should ask Freud about this. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I don't think you can actually imagine something new. Like, I think that you can only imagine sort of composites of things you've seen. Like, I think, and once again, I don't know if this is 100% scientifically true. You guys know you should never quote me on anything if you're ever writing a paper. I'm not a source. That, like, if you kept somebody in a room and never showed them the color blue for their whole life, and then we're like, imagine the color blue. I don't think they could do it. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. So when you're imagining a novel, right, when you're imagining a sad scene, you're going to imagine the lighting maybe in a sad scene that happened to you. Like, I think these little bits of filling in the blank are so powerful for that. That's why I think those mediums are the best at telling people what's going on in the world, of actually describing an event, of making them feel the emotions of a real event. Whereas I think music is so great at making you feel emotions in their abstract, right? Like, I could write a happy song with sad lyrics, and as long as the beat's upbeat, I mean, like, Hey Ya is a great example of this, right? Supercut by Lord, I'd say too, is a good example of this, right? There are songs that like have this super upbeat vibe, and they can make you feel upbeat, despite the fact that they're saying the most terrifying, just like awful things. That's powerful. I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool. That juxtaposition is insane, right? However, you know, a place where that juxtaposition happens will also inherently have holes in it, right? Like, the fact that an upbeat tone can be used to dampen otherwise sad lyrics is also just as much of a weakness, because sometimes you want to exaggerate sad lyrics. That's where like technical skill comes in. You gotta, know what note to use when. I don't even know music theory. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but it's all very interesting. And I want you guys to think, like, this is the reason I think this is so interesting to think about. Because, I mean, obviously, I'm sure there are some of you that are watching this right now like, wow, this guy decided to come here today and say the most obvious things, just the most wildly normal observations he could think of. And that's true. I mean, I'm obviously not uncovering any new ground here, but I do think that it's an interesting exercise, because all these mediums allow you to express different things very differently, right? I think, like, for an example, I have different things that I want to write about versus things that I want to end up painting, versus things I want to make videos about. All these things are going to always work very differently because of what you could express in the mediums. I'd love to make another part 2 of this, talking about maybe things like poems or paintings or content, because I think things like content and AI-generated stuff and newer forms of, art, if you guys believe that it's art, I personally do believe these things are art. These new forms are allowing for different ways of expression that we otherwise couldn't get. I think a great example of this, and this is another side tangent that's probably going to get people really, maybe get me a little heat. I don't know if people like this, but I think what's great about AI too, despite the fact that there's a controversy around how it works and what it does, I think what's great about it is it allows for almost a budgetless expression, right? If I were to want to start up something that I need like intensive, super high photography graphics for, right? Like, I need to go to the Alps and make the best photo shoot I've ever seen. That would cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Inherently, because of the way the world works, only a rich guy gets to express those things and put them into a project. What I think is a little bit opportune about AI is that it allows for this expression that it transcends any sort of budget, any sort of means, right? Maybe it won't be as good. I think that a rich guy being like, I'm going to spend $200,000 and do this photo shoot on the Alps, and I'm going to get the best photographer ever, they're going to be way better than anything AI can come up with, at least right now. But I think there's opportunity in that, right? These new forms of expression are really interesting. They're new mediums in a large way, right? Content maybe isn't as great as expression, right? These are new mediums, and you can express new, interesting things in them. They're opening new doors, and taking those doors and maybe attaching them to the old houses of painting and photography and music can lead to very interesting things. I mean, this is a great example. This is taking content and combining with painting. Very different things are expressed here than would be expressed if this was just a video or just a painting, right? And that's my question for you. This is the point of this discussion today. That's taken me way too long to get to. I don't know why I'm in a talkative mood right now. It's really probably not that great. Despite that, what do you want to express? How can you express it? I think this will always lead to something interesting being made. Let's say you want to express something very direct, how music can make it happen, but a little bit more cerebral than music allows to happen. Maybe you end up doing spoken word poetry over a song. Maybe it ends up being more of a YouTube video that's combining with song. I think like Bo Burnham's Inside, as much as it got played to death over the last 5 years since it came out was a great example of this, where like it's not quite a stand-up thing, it's not quite like a documentary or a video, it's not quite music, but it's combining all three to express an emotion that couldn't be made otherwise. And I'd be willing to bet that Bo Burnham had to push some things to make this new form of something come out to express those emotions, right? That's why I think that's such a great thing, even though it's been, again, played out so much now in the last 5 years. What do you want to express? What do you have to do to do it? You could come with the next big thing just by asking yourself that question. I think it's awesome. I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's one that all artists should ask themselves, because if you want to innovate, you're eventually going to have to express something that you're not really allowed to in the mediums as they exist now. And I think that asking questions like these lead to either A, changing these mediums, or B, creating new ones. I almost just completely lost my train of thought there. Anyways, I've now wiped the paint off my hand, so we're all good to go, everybody. This is the painting. Once again, same palette as yesterday, 2 more paintings with this palette if I'm not wrong. I'm liking it, I really do. I like these colors. They don't pick up that well on camera, I've learned over the last 3 paint talks, but I like them, and even more reason you guys should go check out the Instagram to see how these look with, you know, all the color grading I do to make sure that they look exactly how I see them in person over on the Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Talk episode 187. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.